Hey folks, this is Tully and welcome to some more game dev. Starting off today looking at the shoot ability. I don't know, it just seems like a good thing to kind of tackle. It's bite-sized. We mostly have melee abilities, and this will be our first time in a while taking a look at a ranged attack. So we're going to try and get that set up. I'm going to just jump into it today. There's lots to do and not a ton of time left. We are nearing the end of week 3, and that means we only have about a little over a week left to get to the demo, and it's not looking great. I think we've still made a fantastic amount of progress over the past month, or almost 3 weeks, but I just don't think we're gonna get to something that is gonna be fully releasable. But we're still gonna keep moving forward, because at some point it will be. And I think this makes sense to do today because honestly, I do want to have different types of abilities. So we're going to unlock shoot and equip it, and we're going to make a save file once we reach an enemy just so that we have somewhere to test. We're just going to change out the prefab for shoot so that when it loads it up, it will do something slightly different. So, okay, so for shoot abilities, we have melees, and the way that melee attacks work, it basically... How do melee attacks work? Is this a good enough spot? I feel like I want to maybe... Yeah, sure, this will be fine. So let's save... Let's even make a new save here for room number 3. And then we're going to just stop and restart to make sure it works. But yeah, most of our abilities are melee. And the way that the melee ones function, they essentially just target automatically any enemy in front of you. Is basically it. We're going to change the background music to this one. So continue, let's do here. So if we walk up to this slime enemy, and I push the slash button, it will auto-target this slime. If I walk away from the slime, oh, slimes still have 1 health from one of our previous testings, when we were testing the death animation, but now we want them to be a punching bag because we're going to shoot them a whole bunch. AI state beta, we're going to change their starting stats. Let's go back to having them have 100 health. That should basically be nearly impossible for us to kill. And then from here... Wow, 16 seconds to launch. And then more time to reload. That implies that we need to restart Unity, which I could try and push through and just be like, ignore it. But I think in the long run, it'll save us time if we just restart real quick here. So we're going to close it down and reopen it. Yeah, and then this afternoon, we're going to take a look at the tutorial flow again. We've kind of been working at this problem for a little while, but been talking with Trixie, and we have a pretty cool idea. I don't know if I'll be able to get the whole thing fleshed out in the new flow, but we've got a new direction for the very first run, which I've talked a little bit in previous streams, and we're going to be moving forward with like some of those ideas around essentially the first run being its own special run that is different from all the previous or all the future runs after that. That'll allow us to kind of set expectations that a lot of the stuff that happens with unlocking your first ability is unique to that first experience. And we think we can make it pretty thematically interesting and potentially draw the attention into the kind of game right off the bat a little bit more quickly as well. Okay, so let's try this again. So if we run this, should be a bit quicker the second time. Still a little slow. We can try... We have Blender open in the background. We could try closing that down. Let's make a save. Yeah, okay. And then if we continue from number 3, the slime should be more of a punching bag, and then I can continue from where I left off like 3 minutes ago. So when we do a melee attack, we walk up to them, and we hit the button and it auto-targets. But if I walk away from this slime, and then... How do I do this easily? Okay, so I'm facing the wrong way. I'm facing this way. So if I hit the slash button, it actually does come up with a confirm cancel buttons here, which are indicating whether or not you want to use this ability. And we have essentially this auto-targeting effect that if you face an enemy, it basically detects that an enemy is selected and it will push A for you. And so that's essentially what's happening when we hit A when already facing an enemy. So we're going to need to figure out how that works with shoot. Because we're going to need to have it so that the shoot ability also auto completes, but we also kind of want to show you the range. So there's kind of this weird thing where like the system I've built for auto targeting makes sense when we're kind of always melee attacking, but when we get into range it gets to be a little bit more awkward. And a lot of the system was built up around this kind of like directional based attacks, but a ranged attack isn't really going to be directional based. It's going to be based off a range around the character. It could be directional, but I just don't think that makes really much sense at all. But luckily we started with the ranged as our first version of abilities, and we built all of these kind of other types second. These melee ones are like the things we did after we had gotten ranged working. I just haven't tried adding a ranged ability to the player in a long time, so it just might be a little broken. Abilities, base, no, simplified, tier 1, shoot. So right now this is just a copy of our original heavy attack, I believe, but we need this to operate a little bit more like one of our older prototype ones. So let's see here. What would be a good one? Bow sounds like it was probably originally designed to be something similar to what we're doing now. It looks like it loads the ability by addressable ID. So if we take shoot and turn that off and then make it so this old prototype ability is our shoot ability instead, how hard does the game break, I wonder? I imagine we're missing some components that we've been adding as we've been continuing to build up the ability system. So I expect we're going to have some bugs here, and we're going to just work through them piece by piece. Right off the bat, we have some console errors. Let's see. Failed to find the ability type. Okay, that makes sense. So let's take a look here and cross compare. If we select shoot and then open an inspector here, unlock and lock so that we stay on the shoot information, and then go to bow, and then what is different between these two? Scroll to the bottom. Looks like ability improvements and ability type component. So ability, let's look for type component, and then also ability improvements. So that should be here. And then we can set this to be a high attack, it looks like. It can be called bow, that's fine. Everything else here should be okay. Properties, ability infos, yeah. Alright, so let's give that a shot now and see if that is good enough for it to load in. I'm not entirely sure how the targeting is going to work with this old style. I assume all of the ability effects I had are still functional with it, but again, not entirely sure. Going in a little blind today. Okay, so we loaded in, so that's good. So if I hit shoot, more null references. So what is it about predicting the shoot that breaks? Let's just turn off console for now. More objects trying to be allocated. So it is trying to allocate something and failing. What are you trying to allocate? Oh, it should be giving me an ID. The ID is blank. Oh, it's legitimately trying to play something. It believes when I hit that target ability, it thinks there's something in range and it is trying to attack it. And then the issue is the particle it's trying to load doesn't exist. Okay. So how does it know to load the existing particles? We must have made a pool for them. Particles 2_melee. So where is our melee particle existing currently? Is that something that we just have in every scene? So it is here. But I don't believe... I create these manually. I think these are being automatically created. This _GOP game object pool parameter looks unique to me. Let's go see where that's being added via script. And there was a blank pool that had no information inside of it as well, this one here, that had no objects in its list. Here. So inside of create pool, so where is create pool being used? Okay, part of the combat unit factory, which is old Heir of Ember stuff. Which one of these is related to infinite retries? Not this one. Oh no, sorry, this is part of core. Oh, and this is in the same spot? Yeah, so this is all part of the core system. So it looks like when we initialize an ability, we do try and create a particle effect and any line particle effects associated with it internally. Okay. So this should be getting initialized as part of the abilities. Okay. So it's going to loop through all of the abilities that are assigned to this unit, which get done on load of player, and it's going to try and create a pool for each one of them. If their children in the ability have a particle effect associated with it. So I'm going to guess that Bo has a particle effect, but it has an empty entry. Okay. So this brings us to another problem. Let's write down these problems so we keep track of them. Inside of here, we'll make a new blank slate for all of our... nope, didn't want to drag that one. Let's drag this one. And we will rename this to... questions. Ranged attacks. So in here... Problem number 1 is we need to have figure out ranged ability targeting, auto targeting. That's problem number 1. Problem number 2, we need to figure ability ranged targeting. We need to create arrow projectile particle is how I would describe it. So we only have particles that just play and just exist for a moment and then deallocate themselves. But for a ranged attack, we should have some sort of arrow that gets spawned and moves to the enemy. And then potentially we need to have a like impact particle. Spawn projectile particle, move particle to enemy, despawn particle, spawn impact. Either that or we don't despawn the particle, we move it to like another version and then we play the impact, but it probably makes sense to have two different particles for this. Okay, so for now, because I don't want to deal with the projectile arrow stuff, I don't think right now, I think I want to just have it use the melee particle, which will essentially just be the impact side of it. And we'll figure out the moving stuff later. So we'll go back into bow. And we will give it that particle. Still also interesting that it is auto-targeting the enemy as soon as we hit A. I would expect that the enemy wouldn't have been in range, but maybe this attack is much further range than I remember it being. We'll try it from here. It is much further, okay. But it essentially shows an area, but it doesn't show like your targeting reticule, which I think makes sense. We're not showing you, hey, you're going to target this square for this type of ability. We just want to show you any enemies. And you know what? That kind of works. I just don't love it because we don't get to see what our range is. We could make it so that ranged abilities don't auto-complete. So instead, if you start a ranged ability, it just simply shows the information and you must hit A to confirm. That might be okay, but I maybe we just leave it like this. Okay, so that did just work though. How does bow work? What is its targeting system? Uses a unit ability area effect, whereas shoot is using a effect-driven ability effect. So effect-driven says the area of ability of this effect is determined by its ability effects. The ability itself has no idea what the range of itself is going to be. It's completely, like, what it's going to hit is based off of the effects under it. And by that nature, I think this line ability range isn't even used. Like, ability range is only used for attacks that are not effect-based. We're looking at some older kind of code. So we have a number of these: self, infinite, constant, cone, cleave. We have a number of different ranges that we can set up. So inside of the targeting screen, we grab the ability range, we initialize the UI for it, which basically just say it shows all the spaces that are within range of us. We update that range if we change directional. But how does that work when it's an ability effect? Interesting. The fact that these are lined ability ranges makes me think that we may just be bypassing this system entirely for effect-driven, but I can't quite see how that's working. Because this is the main heart, but this mostly is just used for initializing the UI. Let's take a look at some other ability effects. These guys. The ability area, I mean. So if this is an effect area, This just asks the ability to predict based off of what we have targeted, and then it comes back as valid or invalid for whether or not it found a valid target. Then we clear some information and then set the valid based off what we found. But if we do like charge, does this use the ability range in some way? It does. It uses that range to find tiles in range, and then it goes through those tiles and tries to get the tiles in the area. Maybe a simple one would be full. Yeah, so this full ability area just grabs the ability range, and whatever the ability ranges tiles are is what this effects tiles are, thus the full ability area. So I think when it comes to this one though, we don't really do that kind of like, hey, get the tiles and give the information. We still have this get tiles in area call, which is mostly used by the AI system, right? And the AI system doesn't really... None of the abilities the AI is using are using any of the effect-driven. They're all using the more traditional forms. Okay. So, looking at bow, it has a constant ability range of 4 and infinite verticality because we don't really have jumping or height really taking place in the game. Maybe it's something we add later, but for the time being it's just infinite. And this basically just tries to find a number of tiles around the unit as long as it's within the height. Gets all tiles in range. Okay. And this one is a unit ability area, which is another one we hadn't looked at. Ah, okay. And so the way bow works, I remember this now, is it doesn't necessarily get a series of tiles around it per se. It gets a number of units that are within the range, and then we build a menu info out of it, and then we essentially let the player toggle through the enemies as if they were buttons in a menu, so they can hit left and right to kind of switch between different options. Okay, I think that's still fine then. We might be able to just use this old bow ability wholesale as shoot. How would that work then? So it wouldn't have any ability effects, it wouldn't be directional, it literally just tries to get targets within range of whatever the constant range we set it to be is, and then it would grab any units, and if there is a unit in range, it auto selects and auto fires. I guess the main difference here we want to do is, I guess on the target select screen, we have some sort of call in update or something. Yeah, that's basically submitting on press continuously. Will this have any information in it? What does ability effect 1 do for this? It just returns an empty list. Okay, I guess that kind of makes sense, because this is specific to the range type abilities. It's a little hard-codey, but special case maybe is a better word for it. So what we could do is we could do a if data menu, which is a data-driven menu, is a data-driven screen component. Which contains an ability and a list of information. Okay, I'm trying to figure out if we can get the count. If we can get the number of buttons in this menu, that would be helpful. Which, of course, iMenu doesn't have that information. Not directly, but we can get buttons, which is going to be a list of buttons in that menu. And then we can get the count from there. And if that is greater than 1, maybe it's better to say less than or equal to 1, then we should skip. For readability with the comment, we'll add brackets. The problem is I don't know whether or not this is going to have a iMenu class associated with it. We're going to have to go look at the target screen. So we're going to come down here into the screen section. Front end, combat, prefabs, screens, target. And then look at the screen component. The data-driven menu is this one, which will have a menu list, which is an iMenu. Yes. What were the other examples? There was also menu, which is a menu component, which contains a reference to the menu. Okay, so I think a slightly more efficient way to do this would be to grab not the data-driven menu, but just the menu component. And then from that, get the iMenu. In theory, should be able to get that information. It's just .menu. Ooh, not seeing it. This is a menu component. Oh, it's protected. Ah, because we can get it from this directly. I see. So we don't need to go down a level. We can just say, hey, menu, give me your buttons. Yeah, all right, cool. Cool, cool, cool. So if the menu for the target screen has 1 or less buttons, then we'll try and auto-complete because there's only 1 target. But if we ever have multiple targets, then we'll let the player choose between them. And then area effect attacks that do multiple hits on multiple zones don't occupy this list or update this menu, so it won't matter. Yeah, okay, I think this all works. Again, some of this stuff's a bit old even for me. I haven't worked on some of this stuff for, well, I guess realistically this has only been 6 months, but we've done a fair amount in the last few weeks and my brain has overflowed some information, I think. Okay, so now if we go back down to bow, I think what I want to do is I want to basically delete shoot and replace it with this new bow one. Is that how I want to do this? This becomes shoot. We need to cross-reference the two of them, I think. So this one has a bunch of information inside of it that we probably don't care about. Show direction, hit, distance, found tile, all this stuff is related to kind of parsing through the area. Then it has like a damage effect and a hit effect. Shows the ability name. Okay, it does a lot more than the old bow one does. So we will need to augment this. So it has an audio effect and a particle effect now. Let's just start by trying to bring in hit effect and see what that gives us. That's gonna have a lot more. So this is probably a better one to use than whatever it was doing before. Yes and no. don't care about this aspect of found a unit. Enemy only is fine. Tracking whether or not it hits something is also good. Okay, then it's going to show the ability. It's going to select the tile and face the tile. We don't want that anymore. I thought I got rid of that. Oh, did I only get rid of it for shove? I did. Ooh, this might cause problems. But we're going to make a global change here, and we're going to make it so that we get rid of this old face target logic, because I think it was causing a lot of bugs. At least for shove it was. And we're going to change it to this new face target ability effect, which is just turning the player to the direction. Interesting. So this will only work for directional based attacks. I think that's still better. But this immediately means we can't use this for shoot. Instead of a melee attack parameter, this is going to need a new ability animation. It's going to do some tile selection stuff. I don't know if this is going to do what we think it does. Get target tile. In this situation, we're not actually getting, like, building, like, a set of information. So we have a couple different ability targets. This is, like, a thing I have in PureRef as, like, a thing we want to fix, but I had made it so that direction, units, and tiles could all be targeted. So you could target a tile, you could target a unit, or you could target a direction, which made sense at the time, but having worked with the system more, I feel like what I'd rather do is just make it so there's just one, which is this one here, because it already has to have references to units and tiles inside of it anyways. And so I think I just want to make like one class, which is like target info. And that gets populated when you try and target something with whether it's a unit or a tile or a direction. But right now they're all just using interfaces. And so that means if we target a unit, get target tile will give us its current unit. So I think this will still be okay. So in this case, it'll essentially get the unit. It'll get the preview tile, which will be null in this situation because we haven't been doing any of the like updating of preview tile because this isn't effect driven. So this will not get in here, but then it'll get the unit's target tile and display that tile as selected. So I think that's okay. It'll play a hit effect on the enemy, it'll flash the target, it'll play a particle effect, which means this particle effect is no longer needed. Is there not an audio effect in here when we hit something? There's not. Do we not play audio when we... No, we definitely have a hit effect. Or hit sound. Oh, it's on the notification, I think, of the text box going off because it just determined whether we hit or miss will decide which sound we play. So yeah, so it's not driven by the ability itself, which means I think we also don't need this sound effect. Then we do some set power stuff. Do we need the... No, we ended up refactoring out the requiring to set the power because it's all handled by the ability improvement system now. So that's fine. We have combo checkers. So if this is a high attack or range attack, it should still trigger all of that stuff okay. So then we should be able to disable all this. I'm just turning it off rather than deleting it just for kind of debugging purposes. It shouldn't get used if it's turned off. This just has a cost effect on it. I think that'll be the same for the old ones. Yeah, nothing's different there, I don't see. Okay, so it's essentially just a non-effect driven. It uses this old kind of ranged and unit area system, it'll essentially find any unit within range. If there's more than one, it'll let you select it, which one you want to choose to shoot. And then once you select one, it will then perform this hit effect, which shouldn't have any tile-based effect-driven nonsense in it. It should just apply all of this stuff on the target. Yeah, like something like hit effect. This doesn't really care whether or not it's directional. Yeah, it's gonna get unit from target. And this is just going to call get unit, which for the unit class is just going to give the unit as the target. Yeah, so I think all of this should be okay if I've written this code correctly. I've tried to make it all backwards compatible, but we haven't really gone back to an old style ability in a long time. So let's give this a try and see what happens. I expect it should work the exact same way as the bow was working, but with more animations, essentially. Okay, not in range, yes in range. Yeah, and now we get an actual, before we were just doing damage and there was no animations. By adding the proper hit effect, now we attack and then the enemy actually gets struck. And like flashes the kind of white color for a second. Okay, but we're still doing a punch animation. Let's fix that next. I think this is perfect, though. We are probably going to want to add more ability effects as we try and figure out how to have a projectile particle. And even the order of some of this is going to need to be a little different, but I think it's going to be good. Ooh, we should check that face targeting. I'm curious to see what happens if an enemy is enraged and we range attack them while facing in the wrong direction, if it actually updates our facing correctly. It'll also be a little weird if they're... Ooh, it doesn't work. Oh, right, because we disabled it. Because we don't have a direction. So we'd have to do target get direction, which is going to come into the unit, which is always just going to return north because it has no idea what you want from it. And this is the type of stuff where I feel like, yeah, units, tiles, and directions shouldn't just be like interfaced targets. It makes some sense, but it also feels like I'm having to duplicate a lot of logic. It would make more sense to me that we just like create like a target blackboard of information. And even some of the property stuff we do could probably be inside of that, and it gets passed down, populated with information. Different ability effects can modify that kind of that chest of information for all of the data associated with targeting, and then we can write different sections of like get target information based off whether a unit is set or a direction is set. I don't know. There's a huge refactor, but I might want to do it after the demo, but before the full game release. Or this might just be fine. Maybe it's fine. How would we do this if it was fine? Like... This wouldn't have enough information is the problem. Because we don't know who the attacker is. So, like, get direction wouldn't be a good enough function as is. It would need more information. Because the unit doesn't know about the targeter in this situation. So in order to have a true get direction... We'd probably need a different function that's like get direction to target. Yeah, it's just weird because the ability wouldn't have enough information to know whether or not the target is a directional based target, in which case we should just face the direction that we're supposed to be attacking, or it wouldn't know if we're targeting a tile or a unit, in which case we should do some logic to figure out the like best option for facing an enemy that might be a few tiles away. Essentially finding the difference between the two tiles and getting like a vector, and then determining the closest facing based off that vector. We don't have PureRef open yet. Yeah. This might be like one of the best case examples of why we should do this refactor. Just the fact that we want to face target, but if we're doing a traditional style, like choose a unit and give it the unit as a target, versus if we're like doing an effect driven ability, which is like setting the facing and it's all directional based, it would make more sense if it was a target parameter rather than having the unit, the tile, and the direction be each a interfaced ability target type. Hello, Amorphous. Welcome from the Twitch side. We are working on building a shoot animation today, or a shoot attack, and just kind of working through some of the problem solving on that. And just kind of coming to the realization that we need to maybe refactor the ability system. Maybe just continue to kind of hack around it for now. I don't know. I'm trying to think what would be the hack. I guess we could have two different ability effects. We could have a face target ability effect for directional and a face target ability effect for non-directional, but that just seems silly. I'm going to leave it alone for now, and let's move on to some other stuff. So, we had gotten some animations in the bonus stream with Drixie yesterday, where Drixie was mostly working on art and like color palette stuff and kind of designing some different trees. Meanwhile, I was trying to kind of help support her by doing some importing of some animations. This work doesn't require a ton of kind of art direction. There's a lot of just technical setup to export the 3D model to a series of sprites. So I'm trying to support her by kind of bringing in some of these and then kind of just drawing in a general kind of shape of like the enemy or the weapon attack for hitting the enemy. So like here we have like a club is what I'm trying to go for. Then we have like a slash attack. So I'm pretty happy with these from my perspective. I think Trixie can do a better job with like trying to get this to look better. The perspective is the thing that I think we'll still struggle with a little bit, but I think it's giving the broad idea and is going to feel better than just having a punch animation for everything. And then this is the shoot, which again, pretty rough, but I think it gets the idea across at least. Mostly just trying to pencil in the shape. I imagine she can do a much better job kind of creating something, but I just want to get the idea in here to kind of improve the experience, because everything being a punch just makes everything feel a bit lackluster. Even if this art is very placeholder and gray box, it'll still feel better than just having a punch for everything. Cool. So I think the only other thing I'd like to do here is I've kind of colored this in with a bright red, but some of the narrative stuff we're kind of looking to go towards, I think implies that we might want this to be like a gold color instead. It doesn't really matter, but I'd still like to give it a shot. Now this arrow might want to be a different color from that. We'll look. So if we come into here, let's just change all of these to be yellow. Let's do non-continuous as well so that I don't have to click on every single section. And we're just going to swap all of these to yellow. because I think that's just a better kind of representation. The broad idea is that we're thinking about having it so each of these weapons narratively are represented by kind of like this omni-weapon idea. Thinking about making it so that when you get a new ability, you're not necessarily getting a new weapon associated with it. You're getting essentially this weapon that is modifying and changing to your expectations. And therefore it will be kind of this glowing goddess color, because it will be a item that you receive through interacting with the goddess. So this omni weapon just makes sense to be kind of her golden hue. And it'll probably also look a lot more contrasty. Again, all of this will get fixed up, and Trixie will do a pass to make this look even better. Sorry, Amorphous, just seeing... Yeah, I saw that I missed the Trixie stream. I was disappointed to see that. Yeah, it was very impromptu. It was not something that was planned. We were just doing some art stuff. Originally, we were planning on doing kind of like a test recording to kind of just like see the setup and just kind of test everything. But Trixie was like, I want to just go live. And I was like, okay, we can just do that if that's what you want. But that means that that stream was a bit of... a bit technically sorry, I'm thinking about the arrow color. That stream was a bit of a echo fest. That's what I'll say. It was a bit of an echo fest because it had Trixie on not a great mic, but I wanted to have it so that she had her own VTuber setup, and in order to have that work, I couldn't pipe her audio through my audio setup that's uses two mics through to my one computer, because that means every time she talked, she'd activate my avatar. So we had to have her own mic set up and then pipe. It was the whole thing, but it meant that the only mic that we had on hand was not great quality, and therefore was not sounding the best, and also didn't have good like options for like gain and stuff, so it was also kind of picking up a little bit of my voice as well. Not perfect, but I think it proof of concept enough that I'd be willing to kind of go and find a new microphone to maybe try and build some better setup there. Listen, I've been doing this long enough that I have at least some levels in audio wizardry, but yeah, just not the right technology. Listen, I was half debating going down to like an audio store and picking up a mixer and then just like swapping one of my microphones, XLR microphones, into like a new mixer, but Trixie was not having it. And I was like, okay, well, we'll do a stream, then she'll get addicted, and then she'll want the good mic and the good setup. Okay, so I think this is looking okay. The color differential on the arrow is a little weird, is maybe the thing that's still bothering me. I kind of want it to be like enough of a different tone that you can tell, but I don't love... We also tend to go a lot darker on a lot of these colors now, but that starts to look very greenish. I guess I'd have to go more... But see, now we're getting too brown. Maybe it's more of like an orange color is what I'm looking for. Yeah, maybe that looks a little better. Or do we just go wild and it's more like a bright blue? Nope. Like lightning, kind of electricity kind of blue. Again, the colors and the drawing is not my strong suit. I think I can call stuff out a little bit when I see something that seems a little bit off, but when it comes to like the baseline creations part, that's where I think I fail the most. Could also just go for more of a kind of a whitish. Maybe it just needs to be paler. Sure, we'll go with this. Mostly because we need to figure out what the particle is as well, and what particle color looks right, and we're probably going to need to match the particle color to the arrow color. Yeah. Again, I'll show this to Trixie, and she'll be like, you need to do this color right here because triads or something. Again, she's been doing all that research for the past 4 years, and it's starting to come very natural, even though she doesn't necessarily recognize those skills all the time that she's developed. She definitely has them. So we'll start here, and let's just export the sprite sheet, and let's see if we can at least bring in these animations. The sheet is getting massive. I'm curious what the actual size of this stuff is getting to be. We might need to break Hero up into multiple different pieces at some point and import the animations individually. Let's go look. I want to see how big is this file. Hero, animation formatted. So we have 224 frames of animation so far. That being said, we're not using all of them. Ooh, last import generated 42 warnings. Okay, it is a 1.5 megabyte, and it failed to place everything. Let's print to console the 42 warnings. Ooh, interesting. Maybe this goes away when we slice it, so let's reslice the animation. No. We may have actually hit the limit or something. Oh, it's failing on reading in the JSON file. Interesting. This implies it failed to load the actual object. So Amorphous in Twitch chat is asking, is a big sprite sheet a technical problem? Do you need to like split into multiple sheets or something? It's possible. I've not encountered this before. We've been slowly adding in more and more animations to Hero, and I figured we might hit some sort of limit at some point. Although this implies that we've been having similar issues in the past, because this is giving similar errors on all of our animations, so possibly there's just been warnings for a while and I just hadn't noticed them. Not what I was trying to do. I think part of the problem here is that we're also running into an issue with the boar that Drixie checked in. I have not done a process pass on the boar, and so it doesn't have an anim file associated with it for its like export data, and I think it's trying to process that, and that's still giving us issues. So let's make a fix to system. Let's make it so that if we fail to find data here, we should just return. If the JSON data is not found, we should just leave. And then we'll try reslicing, because I don't think it even got to Hero because of the fact that the boar is higher in the list of folder structure. Slice sprites. Okay, it did slice it properly that time. Multiple objects with the same field are generated by this importer. There's no guarantee that the sequential import of this asset will relink to those targets. Huh. Identifier uniqueness violation. We've been seeing weird issues where every time we like sync the project on a different computer, we have to reslice the animations and reanim the animations. I bet you this is related. Same thing here. We should also just leave. If we don't find a JSON, we shouldn't crash. We should just get out. It's also possible we should, like, print something as well. Like, failed to find JSON file at this directory location. Not entirely sure if we know the name. I'm going to ignore it for now. Actually, even if I can't give a good error message, we should still give something. So we will just come in here and we'll add a debug log error anim sprite JSON not found in directory. And maybe we could just do that. Sure. We'll see what it does. Where was the other location we were doing this? Here. Cool. So now if we do anim sprites. So yeah, in the boar PNG it failed to find it. That's kind of an okay message, but it didn't stop it from importing everything. This is not an error though, this is a warning, and this is just letting us know that some of the fields may not be relinked properly, but because we almost always anim all the sprites after we slice all the sprites, I think that's okay. I don't think it's a big deal. Oh, speaking of animating the sprites, there's another process we have to do here. So right now I have it set up so that it only brings in animations and sets up animations correctly if they are in these lists, which this is getting unwieldy, so we need to refactor this at some point, but that will again not be today. But we need to add the 3 new animations here, and I think we have to do it somewhere else too. Down here. Bash. And shoot. I don't think I caught the hydration from Amorphous. Also, Amorphous, how you been? I feel like you haven't been around in a bit. I assume everything's still good? Life hasn't kept you too busy? What do we want? Ooh, this one's good. We'll go with beliefs for a little while. Hydration. All right. Good to hear, good to hear. I mean, that's always a win. That's always a win. Okay, so that should be all we need to do in order to have it so it actually imports and creates the slash bash and shoot animations we made. Oh, I did forget one more thing. It's funny how it comes to me in waves. In order for an animation to work, it needs to have an associated frame for it to pause on. and it needs this data so that the animation importer will add a animation pause so that when we impact the enemy, we wait for them to play their particle effects and stuff before we continue onwards. I'm gonna put it here, mostly because these animations don't have a good, like, impact frame. Like, maybe this one here... Oh no, this one's really good. How did I miss that the first time? Pause. And then we will remove it from this one. Same thing here, we'll go on that frame. And remove it from that frame. And then slash will also need an impact frame, which I think is going to be this one. This one's a little weird because it's like hidden by the angle, but maybe we can do something better there. I don't know how the shoot's going to work with an impact frame. I suppose we'll still pause on this animation here until the arrow hits so that you still see Hero holding the bow. Stretch redeem from Mana Banana Dev. Yeah, okay, we can do that. Let's go to stand mode. And also, having fun today. I assume that's a question. I am. I'm having a great time today. Thanks for asking. Hope you're having a great day as well. I forgot to turn off my VTuber that time. The avatar. No. I just like it because if it's off, it makes it more clear for like someone skipping ahead in the YouTube archive to the exact moment when that's over. Okay, so we imported the JSON. Let's now re-import the animations, and now I might finally have it all set up that we can just try adding the shoot. That's fine. Still missing the boar setup. So what would be the animation then? This wouldn't be melee 1. This would just be shoot now? We are going to need to solve the facing problem though, because this animation is going to look real weird right now because we're not going to look towards the enemy. I mean, I can set it up so that we at least start looking the right way. Alright. Does this work? I mean, yes. Ooh, but we get locked in the pause. So it didn't read the pause correctly. Because it's going to wait here until it finds the pause event. Is it a capital problem? The way that it sets up the pause is a little weird because it puts it on specific frames, not the animations themselves, but it looks like it's set for... It's all lowercase in every one of these situations, and it's on 267, 259, 249, 241, 234. It should have it set up. We can see it in the JSON file. Interesting. Let's go take a look at the animations themselves. So if we come into here, look at the files, and we look at, say, Northwest Shoot. Ooh, we only see the process animation. It did not create pause animation events. Interesting. Let's see here. Inside of here somewhere, it's listening for pause. And it should add a pause event if it detects something in that cell data within that range for that animation. Interesting. Have a good day, Amorphous. Good luck with the chores. And I'll be around for most of the day. Another hour here, and then we'll be back from 2 to 4. But another hour on the shoot animations. Wow, we've already been through about an hour just trying to get everything set up. I mean, I guess we got the ability functional. Now it's just kind of layering on polish. But there's still a fair amount of polish to do. Why are these systems not working? Why did you not generate a pause event? Let's take a look at Slash. Slash also doesn't have it. Melee 1. Melee 1 also doesn't have it. Interesting. It is looking for lowercase. Let's add a breakpoint and see if somehow we broke this at some point. Shouldn't matter. Enable debugging. And then we'll do another anim pass and see what's going on. Because like Melee 1 definitely had a pause before we did this latest pass. Okay. Tools, anim sprites. It's getting in here. It is creating events for pause. This is animation tag Melee Southwest. Let's just add a watch for this. Oh, we actually have some here already. So all the melees are definitely getting it added. Ooh, we got some errors? Just the bore error again. Okay, so then only detecting it on the Melee 1? Because we didn't see it get hit for any of the other ones. Is it because we added extra data for the other layers? I wouldn't imagine that should matter. It does matter. I make an assumption that there's only a single layer. Interesting bug. Okay. Okay. Well, I suppose the easiest fix is going to be to loop through all the layers. And then check all those layers' cells. And then if that cell.data string.is not null or empty, set the value. and we still assume that I only put data in the proper layer. We could concatenate the data and add it with like a piece separating it. What is our separation value? In here we separate. I'm positive we do some sort of separation. We don't. We just check to see if it contains information. Oh, this assumes that the only data in that cell data, though, is just the Y value. Okay, okay. We're kind of making a hard assumption that, in general, there's only one piece of data added per cell, one event, or one modification in the height of the cell. That probably needs to get fixed at some point, but again, I don't think it's worth digging too deep into right now. So we will just anim that again, anim sprites. And then we will check melee 1. Still missing the animation. Shove. Slash. No, they all just have the process animation at the end for complete. Just curious to see if we get anything out. It looked like we didn't hit any breakpoints that time. Yeah, we are not hitting the pause data at all now. Oh, probably because of this? Understood. So we shouldn't add this call in here now. That's the problem. And it shouldn't be a return, it should be a continue. If this layer doesn't have any cell data associated with it, just move on to the next one. Okay. All the tools. Got a couple people hanging out today. Thanks everyone for hanging around. I don't know if this is the most interesting content, but we are trying to get the animations up and running. Okay, let's see. Did not see any pause animation stuff. Did not see any prints, so still not functioning. Interesting. Let's add a breakpoint here. Yep, that should work. Should be able to see it hitting that data point at least sometimes. We do not. Okay. Let's add a breakpoint here. Okay, definitely getting here. This one only has one layer, so that's not the one we're looking for. One layer. Nope. 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 4. So this is hero with the 4 layers we've added. Okay. We are finding 12 pieces of data in here to do with... Oh, this doesn't make sense, I would guess. I was assuming this is string data, but it is not. Okay, yeah, this if statement makes 0 sense, because I assumed that the data we were working with was a string, and it was just a bad assumption. Okay, wake up. Wake up, Tolhi, you can do this. We're so close. I mean, the animation is playing, which is nice. It's just some of the metadata stuff that we just need to fix. Stop debugging. That's a lot of pause prints. If we look at slash, it now has an effect. Okay. Or it has an event for pause. Let's take a look at shoot. We should see the character pause until the animation plays out. Continue. The music rises. In anticipation, do we achieve our goal? Yeah. That's shoot. Now, if we're looking this way, yeah, the facing being wrong or not getting updated does feel a bit off, but otherwise I'm pretty happy with that. Minor adjustments. Let's change the range from 4 to 2. 4 is a bit too extreme. It's more of like an end game kind of ability, it feels like to me. And then if I hit shoot, it gives me a range, but doesn't actually fire anything. But I can kind of see as we're getting closer. So I might like skip a turn to let the enemy gets close, and then just fire twice and then back away. Fire twice, and then back away. So we can keep kiting the enemy forever, basically. As long as we stay one tile away at all times and use our last point of movement. Neat. Enemy down. Now the question is that bad? I think I might be okay with that. If you want to conserve health, you can spend a billion turns shooting the enemy to death and never getting hit, but then you just run out of time because you took way more actions than necessary, because you're wasting one of your 3 actions every turn just moving. I think that's fine if you want to just kite the thing. We'll see if it becomes a permanent problem, but like, I think that's okay at the start. At least to get feedback on. It does mean that shoot will farm more experience than the other abilities, so we might want to bring down how much experience shoot gains. Is that something we can even do right now? I don't think it is. I'm pretty sure the experience is just granted based off of damage. Yeah, and they're just hard set values. We might want to make experience a property and have it be set via some of the like ability pieces, like metadata, similar to how we're handling power. Maybe ability improvements is the wrong name for this class because it handles updating the power property. But maybe this shouldn't be ability improvements, this should just like be ability metadata. It was only called improvements because we built it when we were building the skill tree nodes to upgrade your power. Interesting. Okay, something to think about. Let's make a note of that for the future. I don't think I want to tackle it right this second, but let's go to PureRef. Let's dump this under probably low priority polish. So we'll grab that. Also grab this one. Because it might also just be fine for shoot to gain more experience. Actually, let's collapse some of these down a bit. Just to make the screenshot a little less crazy. A little more readable. Okay, and then we'll bring that into here as well. And then make a new note. Change or add experience to ability improvements. rename ability improvements to ability metadata or something along those lines. Cool. Another task wrote down because we're not fixing it now. So we kind of got shoot working. That was kind of the main goal. Ranged ability types, build the shoot ability. I think this is kind of meeting that requirement. Could I ship the demo with shoot as is? You know, I think I could. Like, it'd be nice to have like an arrow effect. You know what? Okay. I think I could ship it as is without an arrow attack, but I do need to have facing. It feels really weird to just like do a bow shot in a random direction and see the enemy get hit. Just making sure everything's good over on the YouTube side. Yeah, we're fine. Okay. How are we going to solve this? How are we going to get it so that if we use the shoot ability, we face the enemy? Oh. Oh, I was smart? I was smart once. So when I get direction, I actually return whether or not this is a valid direction from this, which would tell us whether or not this is going to give us proper data. Do we do the same thing for a tile targeting? We do, but we say that this is valid if it is an ability to direction target. Okay. Reading the code explains the code. Let's fix this. I can do it. With that in mind, we can come into shoot. We can change it so the face target is turned on, and then we're going to do a little bit of extra logic. If it's a valid direction, then we will just set the direction to be that. If it is not a valid direction, instead we're going to get the target. We should be able to do it for all cases. We're going to get the target information. We should be able to reference another ability effect, like animation parameter. Get unit from target. That is not what we're looking for. We must do this elsewhere. One of these, for sure, has the functionality I'm looking for. Yes, it was the UI display one that I'm curious on. UI select. We want to do this logic. Get the unit or get the preview tile. If that tile is not null, get the tile from the target. This is null. And then after all this is said and done, we should be able to do tile center, I think. There's directional extensions I have. So I can get a direction from vector 2 from a float angle. We can get a point from a direction. We want to go the other way though. We want to get a direction from 2 tiles. It was the very first one. We want to grab a get direction. Actually, what is the syntax here for this? Is it on one tile to another tile? Yes, from to. In fact, for clarity, let's do that. So this tile is going to be... This will be the 2. This is where we're trying to face. So we'd like to face this here. And we'd like to face from ourselves. How do we get self? This one? Yeah? So if we get a direction out, and this is a valid direction, we just set the attacker's direction. Otherwise, we try and find a unit from the target, and then we try and find the preview tile. I think a small optimization could be to do this, so we only grab... No, I think this is written this way for a reason. Okay, so we try and get the unit, try and get a preview tile, try to get a target tile. If all of this fails, then we get the tile from the unit, and then we check our attacker's current tile to the tile we're trying to face, and that'll give us a direction. It won't always be 100% accurate. It'll kind of default more north and east, probably. No, I guess these are not equal to... So it'll default more south and west. Mostly facing west most of the time. Okay. Hopefully that still works out okay. We're going to increase the range of shoot up to 4 or 5 again. Probably 4 is good enough, just to make our lives a little bit easier with testing this, because otherwise we'd only be able to test diagonals on one very specific square. And I'm kind of curious to see how this is functioning in more extreme examples, even if we don't go to that level of range. Okay. So we're going to move up. We're going to move up, up, and over. And if we hit shoot... Yeah, I mean, it's not facing exactly, but at least it's not facing in the exact opposite direction. So it looks like, yeah, it's defaulting mostly to that one direction. Potentially more than I would like. No, that seems fine. I think it's just there's a couple of cases where I would prefer if it was facing... I almost would like it to face north and south a little bit more, I think. Yeah, like here, it's facing what I think is our western direction, and that's just because of the way it defaults. So we could probably add an equal to here or an equal to here, and that would probably prioritize north and south over east and west. But I don't know what other impacts that might have on other systems. Like the AI system might break if we do that, because it uses that get direction stuff a lot to try and find its way to the player. But at least that's not... That is a slight improvement in the facing. Maybe slight is an understatement. Okay, cool. So now we can target and face the enemy. Next question would be multiple enemies. Let's make a save file with multiple enemies on the screen. Where can we find a spot with multiple enemies? Probably the 5th room in the tutorial stuff. Should be able to get there from here. Okay, from here. So it'll require a little bit of maneuvering, but we should be able to get both of these enemies next to us. Right there should be good enough. And if we hit shoot, yeah, we don't just auto-target one because there's two of them. We can choose which one we want to target. Oh, and the face direction actually does work, because when we predict, we actually do change facings. That's super fun, actually. Yeah, okay. I think that is the shoot ability built. I anticipated this being more difficult than it ended up being. Yeah, I don't know why. I just thought that the ability system would give me more trouble. But for the most part, it was just grabbing an old prototype one, fixing it up a little bit because we've made some modifications to how abilities need to function, and then more problems with like having multiple layers in our A-Sprite files and some of our meta importing on that. So the animation system breaking down a little bit for edge cases I hadn't covered yet. The main thing we haven't actually tried fixing though is one of the things I called out here. So honestly, auto-targeting wasn't even a big deal. It was just more creating the arrow projectile. I suppose that's probably something that would be a nice to have, but like even right now with no arrow projectile, it still seems okay. How tricky is arrows going to be? I legitimately think they might be a huge pain. Whoa. Okay. We have not had two enemies on the screen in a while. That's a fun bug. Let's see if I can get a snip of that, because that's going to be fun to track down. I'm going to try again. I think I can get a better shot. That's a really good one. Let's write that one down. Oh, we had cleaned out all the bugs, too. Stacked enemies. Moved to same square. Oh my goodness. Both a failure at typing and a failure at writing. Okay, let's do that. Let's also change up the background music again. Sure. The reason I call this low priority polish is that, like, I don't think it's, like, it's not... Would it be cooler? Yes, if there was an arrow firing across. But... Okay, pros? Okay, let's write it down. The pros to this is looks cooler. More impactful. It's mainly that. I think the cons to this system is that pixel perfect movement is tricky. And this would potentially need to go on diagonal directions that we don't necessarily have pixel perfect movement implemented on. The other thing is, I think it reads fine. The reason I was thinking about this, like, the reason I was originally writing this down before we implemented everything was because I thought we would need this in order for it to feel like you were hitting the enemy. But I really do feel like this feels like I hit them. Yay, they separated. When I do this attack, because of the delay with the arrow in the hand and just the general like enemy getting impacted, the arrow feels like it's moving away. Like, it just, the way that it's being animated, I think it's coming across okay. Is it perfect? No. But attack reads as if it's hitting the enemy regardless of no projectile. I think it's fine. We want to do something with it eventually, but I'm okay with this. Cool. Next problem. I'd like to, while we've got about 15-20 minutes, I'd like to kind of do some more sprite work. Hydration from unlockable characters. Okay. Let's do some more sprite work. So we have this animation for the slime that we've set up, and the slime is currently here. I made it so, and I don't know if folks even noticed it, but the idol is a bit smaller than it used to be. We reduced the size of the slime by 75%, because when it was this size, it just felt a little like too large in the tile. So I've shrunk the slime down to 75% of its original size. And I exported the idol yesterday, but I have not done all the other ones. So let's bring the rest of these in. So we're going to come in here, we're going to hit render image. And that should render out the slime frame by frame and then convert it into a sprite using some composite stuff inside of Blender. We've covered this a long time ago, but essentially we're just taking all the animations and turning it into a sprite or a pixel, and then we can just open the animation file, and then we have the character getting hit. Then we'll trim this down, and then we want the southwest facing one, so these frames. And we want to replace the old southwest get hit here, but that's moved it, so we've got to reposition it back towards the center, which I believe is somewhere around here. Might be more. Oh, I only grabbed one frame. Here? That seems okay. And this gives us something that's close. Usually Drixie has to come in here and do a little bit of like this type of cleanup work, fixing stray pixels and just generally like recoloring things to be a little bit nicer. But this saves us a fair amount of time. Mostly getting the silhouettes is the thing that we're most concerned about. And then we have it so we render all 4 directions by kind of flipping the camera. But for the most part, we mainly just use 2 and then flip them in engine to reduce the amount of sprites we're having to work with. It does mean that the coloring isn't always right. So like the shading from like the sun maybe doesn't always make the most sense. Ooh, worth noting, was one of these lower than the others? Yes. This is the lowest frame, so we want to stop on the lowest frame so we can make sure we don't go too low here. That feels off. This is too far to the right. And that should be more lined up. Good. And that's the hit animation. So we're just going to go through a couple more of these. Not the most interesting, but it's work that needs to be done. Let's do the walk. Let's render that out. Yeah, so just a minor edit on the slime here. This is work that, like, originally I had slated for Trixie to do, but with us just running low on time here, and I think some of these improvements are minor, but I do want to make them from the art side. Just getting the attack animations in, getting in kind of this updated slime sizing. These are small things that, like, I can do. The cleanup work is not my forte. I'm going to leave that to Trixie's eye for making these things look better. So that they're not just squished 3D models. But at the very least, I can start with getting the actual exporting, because this is not very, like, art required or art skills required. This is more just like getting it all in a good state. It's a bit slimy at times, but again, I think we can clean that up in the way that we build him. If we change a few pixels here and there, that'll look better. Should be somewhere around here. Compare it to the idol. Yep. Should be fine. Southwest walk, northwest walk. Then we've got the idol fixed. Then it's the death. So that needs to come down in size. I'm also going to just save my work at this point. Death animation. So we'll grab that one. Render that out. Dun, dun. The other reason is that, like, we bought Trixie a very good graphics card so that this type of stuff is way quicker on her machine. Still fairly fast on mine, but bad allocation. Ooh. Let's delete some of these old versions. Hopefully that fixes whatever that problem is. Open recent. No. Why are you upset with that import? Should be 32 frames. Bad allocation. Alright, let's try re-rendering it just to see if maybe something went wrong on this side. Fill in air while we wait for things. Yeah, so then we're going to be taking lunch here in 10 minutes or so, and then we will come back after lunch with some more streaming from 2 to 4 PST. So basically in an hour and 10 minutes I'll be back. We're going to do... we're going to do some work on the tutorial this afternoon, which I'm hoping should be pretty fun. I do need to steal some art off of Trixie's machine that will make it look a little better. I'm going to drag the animation in here. No, bad allocation. What about if I just bring in 32? Also bad allocation. What if I bring in frame 2? Skip all the others. No, it really doesn't like that export for some reason. Let's close this down. Let's reopen Aseprite. And let's open this and only open number 1, and we're fine. Okay, let's file, open recent, bring back up the bubble slime, and then open recent 001, agree. Okay, yeah, I guess Aseprite just got mad. I've not seen that before, but in doubt, always just turn it off and on again. Southwest Death, that's going to be this one. Disappeared. Okay, that's odd. Did I speak too soon? Oh, we didn't trim the file. Which means that it did paste it, it just pasted it way off in the middle of nowhere. Perfect. And then we're going to want to find the lowest frame here, which looks to be the last one. So we'll drag towards the lowest frame. And then move this here. And then we'll check the first frame. Too far to the left. So then we'll drag the body over a little bit. I could maybe see it being one more frame over. And then I might even just clean up this pixel because I feel like that's something Trixie would do anyways. Just try and get rid of some of the edge ones that might be a little bit odd. I think that's fine. So if we're here, we're idling, 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 and then we die. I think that's okay. So then from frame 17, I believe, yep, up to 24. Copy that. Dump that in here. Oh, no. Oh, Aseprite just crashed. Okay. Okay. Where did you leave me? Does look like we lost the death work we just did. We could try and recover, but I feel like we're better off just starting over. It is not liking the slime today. More to the right than I think. That seems fine. Clean up this pixel. Save the file. Okay. Okay, same idea. Drag over, get the lowest frame. Drag this over to here, and then maybe a little more to the left than I think again. No, too far this time. I think that might still be too far to the right. Overcompensated way too much. Yeah, I think that's better. There's another stray pixel that I think would be easy to clean up here. Okay. Saved, and that is the death animation. Last one we need is the melee attack. So let's untick this, tick this one on, render animation. And grab this one. Alright, and then we'll bring that one in. We're going to close this just to see if that helps with the Aseprite crashing. Which again, not normal for Aseprite. Not used to seeing that. Let's do Southwest Hit, or Melee 1. Now, this one is going to need to I'm going to need to figure out when the pause frame was. I think it's on the furthest forward. Ooh, okay, frame 68 is the pause frame. I need to trim this in order to copy it. And then here, frame 68. Oh, no, sorry, on frame 68, the word pause. Now, this one's going to be tricky. I don't remember how I handled this last time exactly, but I'm pretty sure I just grabbed this frame and brought it up. Yeah, this one's going to be a little harder than the other ones. Let's take a look at the original. So we went from the center, back, forward, basically covering the entire left side of the screen, then back a little bit down, then back into position. All right. Let's get this one positioned here so it should be facing similar. Maybe a little high. It's a little forward. There to there looks like a similar starting position. I think it's just bring it up. Don't shift it to the left or right at all, just bring it into frame. It's obviously not going to look perfect. I don't think that looks too much different from the original one. It was a pretty jarring, like, attack to begin with. This is always going to look a bit odd because we can't ever go below the, like, character's frame by too much. Otherwise, we start to clip into the floor. So wherever their feet needs to be, nothing can go below it. And we run into this problem with Hero as well, where the death animation Hero essentially crunches upwards and falls, like, so that their feet go away from where they're falling. Like, it's not like they fall forward, it's like they fall and then their body falls out backwards. And so because of the limitations of the spillboarding sprites, we kind of just have to make do with something like this. Again, with some cleanup work from Drixie, I think this will be better, but I think that gives it a good impact. Okay, so here, pause frame, because this is where the animation needs to pause while we do the hit animations for the character, and then frame 17 to 24, copy this over. And then down to 2 pixels below the bottom, I think is where we've been landing. Northwest idle, start of animation. This one needs to be a little more to the right, but otherwise I think we're good. Yeah, like the slime body is shifting, but otherwise it looks okay. Now the question is, do we also bring this animation down? I'm gonna save first, and then I'm going to undo back to before we added this and take a look. It does look like we brought this animation down a lot, so it's more like it's going around a curve before returning back to where it was. So if that's the case, this probably should be brought down. Sure. mean, that does feel like it's impacting pretty hard. That feels like a good katunk from that. So I think that's good. Now we need to do the first real forward hit, and this needs to be a pause frame as well. Okay. We're going to save it, and then we're going to export all of this and re-import the slime. Going to need to bring in the JSON. This will need to be of type array. This goes into this one. Yes, overwrite it, and save. Alright, now we can reslice. Don't really have to, but we'll do it just to be on the safe side. And then anim the sprites. And the slime should be resized. Yeah, and I timed that about right. That took about 15-20 minutes or so. And again, this is what I'm saying about it. Like, it's not that Drixie couldn't do that. It's just more that, like, it doesn't require her artistic eye. And I have more time. The enemy doesn't have a turn to face set up in their ability to attack. Yeah, and we also have a task to make it so that the player and the enemy turns to face their attacker, so that the hit animation feels more like it's getting hit from that direction. Otherwise, that slime feels a little better to me. The original slime was obviously a lot larger, and maybe felt more like a threat, but I kind of like the first slime you get to fight in the game feeling a little bit more dainty, just like a little more fragile is maybe a better way to put it, so that it feels like an enemy you can actually overcome when you're first starting off on your isekai adventure, because you're not going to start fully overpowered. You will start a little on the weaker side. And so these little baby slimes are great fodder for your kind of like starting journey to gain some experience. Yes, Drixie, in Twitch chat, the big one we can put a crown on and make them king slimes. You're probably not wrong, because I wouldn't want to go much bigger than what they are now anyways. And we can also have like a variant of the slime later in the game that's like maybe a different color, and then it's like, oh, again, it's that little, like, to use the same word again, dainty slime, but then it's like, but it's really threatening, beware. Just because it looks dainty doesn't mean that it's not powerful. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with the way that's looking. I like that we're changing facing now. That feels good. Now we need to get slash in. Ooh, right. Can we do that quickly? If we just go into slash and bash, if we just make it so that their animations are no longer melee, but actually, I think I just called it slash. Was there capitalization at all here? Or was it just quite literally just that? And then we're gonna go make lunch. But last thing, animation, sprite, processor, slash, yeah, just capitals. Normal stuff. Okay. Spoiler, Drixie. Spoilers. Okay. So now if we do slash, we should get that slash attack animation. Ooh, that looks less good here. Some of these frames feel a bit more odd as Hero resets back to kind of a standing position with the sword. Maybe the sword should disappear for some of these later frames. But that at least feels more impactful. I like seeing the sword like on that forward hit in contact with the enemy when the number kind of comes up and stuff. It's just the return to idle that feels really odd as we still have the sword in hand as we continue. We're also like following through with the slash in a way that doesn't make a ton of sense after we've seen most of the impact at that point. And then mostly just because I want to see it real quick, let's also modify this to be bash. I don't want to have to go back to the Goddess Realm, unlock bash, equip it, and then see it. 100% unlockables. 100%. Unlockable in Twitch chat says the jump of the sword from the enemy to the player's right shoulder is throwing me. And yeah, 100% agree. Let's see if bash feels the same. This is why, like, you have to see assets in Engine. Seeing them in Aseprite just won't tell you the whole story. Like, that one doesn't feel as bad to me. Maybe it does. It has still a return to idle. I think because we don't always hold the weapon, the animation feels weird to return to those frames. Like, if we cut out the last frame, it might feel a little better on both of them. I think having the attack continue over to here isn't the worst. It's the reset to, like, I'm now standing with it in my hand as normal, but, like, then it just disappears. Oh, it's dead. I was thinking. Okay, well, I think those are fine for now. I can work with Trixie to kind of refine them. The whole point is not to make something perfect myself. The whole point is to take some of the timing and the effort off of Trixie's shoulders for some of the grunt work so that she can focus on just refining things to look good and less about kind of doing the technical importing and kind of drawing up the base concepts. Essentially, I'm gray boxing it so that she can make it look final. Saving her time. Okay, cool. I think that's good. I'm going to fix Slash to use the proper animation, and we'll leave Bash with that club attack. I still think they're a little similar. We could probably separate Slash and Bash with a different one. I might look and see if there's a different animation that might feel a little better for like impacting with like a big club, but I'm going to call that good. So we've got all three of the abilities now with their animations set up. We've fixed the slime to be a reduced size, and we also made a range attack, which we haven't had one of those in a very long time, but that went fairly smooth. We're going to take lunch. We'll be back in about probably still an hour because I do need to make food. And then we will continue at like 2:10-ish, depending on how long dinner takes me to make or lunch or whatever. And then we'll go for another 2-hour stream this afternoon where we'll be looking at setting up the new tutorial area for the one-off kind of initial first run. That's going to require a bunch of special casing, but I'm very excited to start building out the Demon Castle. But we'll talk about that more after lunch. For now, though, this is going to be Tolhi signing out. Later, folks.